The project that brought us together was Swing Shift. That was the place where paths crossed, where connection formed, where love quietly took root, and where a new life eventually began. She possessed a presence that could transform any space without effort, a warmth that lingered long after she spoke. Goldie Hawn, a symbol of joy, an award-winning performer, a familiar face tied to laughter across generations. Yet beneath that luminous exterior existed a quieter reality. Her spirit was never fully satisfied by recognition alone, always leaning toward something more sincere than the echo of applause.
Every step was a promise to herself, even when the world pulled.
And now, at 79, Goldie is choosing to open a door she kept closed for decades, revealing the story of the one person she believes recognized what the spotlight never could. Leave a comment with the number 1 if her journey resonates with you, or 0 if your perspective is different. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to support the channel, because behind every celebrated Hollywood figure lies an unseen chapter shaped by quiet moments. And we're here to explore what history often leaves unsaid.
Gold statues line the year.
He was the only presence that allowed her to feel truly seen in a way nothing else ever had. What unsettled Goldie was not admiration, but perception. The way he recognized the person beyond the practiced smile the world celebrated, a reflective spirit shaped by earlier fractures, quietly seeking a place of sincerity to settle. Most unexpected was that this clarity came from someone who never framed her as the star, but as a living, feeling individual carrying uncertainties, aspirations, and unspoken depths untouched by fame. To the outside world, Goldie remained an enduring emblem of brightness, assured, radiant, unwavering. Yet he alone understood that within that glow existed delicate strands rarely noticed, but deeply real.
Like oxygen, gold statues line the years, but behind the curtain.
From her earliest moments, Goldie carried a natural alignment with performance. It was never driven by demand or design, but by an inner rhythm, an ease suggesting that stories and emotion were already part of her structure, that joy was a form of expression she instinctively understood. Raised in a Jewish household in Maryland, she and her sister Patty moved through childhood unaware of a missing piece, a brother, Edward Jr., who passed away before they could remember. That unspoken absence quietly shaped the background of their early lives, leaving a subtle void that would only gain meaning with time and reflection.
Behind the curtain, silence whispered and love arrived, tangled up in fear.
Goldie stepped into movement at the age of 3, and from that instant, her path felt distinctly her own. While other children moved through motion as simple amusement, she carried an uncommon fusion of timing, feeling, and quiet assurance. Each gesture held intention and flow, and most strikingly, a sense of narrative rarely present at such a young age. She was raised in an environment rich with sound, warmth, and steady affirmation, where every small expression seemed to brighten the space and deepen her family's pride. It wasn't merely that Goldie found joy in dancing, it became the place where she fully existed.
Applause filled the air like oxygen, gold statues.
When she stepped into structured training, Goldie didn't merely follow the rhythm of her peers, she often moved beyond it. Instructors recalled a small figure carrying outsized expression, someone capable of reshaping a stage into a space entirely her own. Even at a young age, she displayed the calm focus of a seasoned performer, meeting practice not with fatigue but with enthusiasm. As though each rehearsal quietly expanded her inner strength, that early grounding marked the opening of a lifelong creative path, one where the purity, delight, and drive of her childhood remained intact, later evolving into the captivating presence that would ultimately draw Hollywood's attention.
Behind the curtain, silence whispered and love arrived, tangled up in fear.
By the time she reached 10, Goldie was appearing in The Nutcracker with the Ruse de Monte Carlo Ballet Company, and from that point forward, the light seemed to recognize her as one of its own. Viewers didn't merely witness a poised young dancer, they sensed a presence marked by uncommon assurance, a child capable of drawing attention through a single turn or an open, unguarded smile. For her, the stage was never a test of worth, it was familiar ground, a setting where motion itself became narrative, and expression unfolded without effort.
Behind the curtain, silence whispered and love arrived, tangled up in fear.
By the middle of the 60s, While many young people were still searching for direction, Goldie was already stepping into major productions like Romeo and Juliet, and even guiding her own ballet school, an extraordinary feat for someone so young. She immersed herself fully in creative life, releasing the safety of college to pursue the calling she felt with absolute clarity. That decision carried her to Canaan, where she crossed into the professional world through her work at the New York World's Fair. It was more than a defining moment in a career. It reflected the resolve of a young woman willing to choose her own course, quietly challenging the limits placed on who she was expected to become.
Applause filled the air like oxygen. Gold statues line the
At the New York World's Fair, Goldie did more than step onto a stage. She took in the full current of creativity moving around her. The Canaan experience placed her among choreographers, actors, and performers from across the globe, each quietly noticing the same rare balance, disciplined determination blended with natural ease. She stood out not by force, but by presence, embodying both a devoted learner and a future standout. During this period, a deeper understanding took shape. Art was not defined by ability alone, but by resilience, inner conviction, and the strength to continue forward after every moment of doubt or dismissal.
silence whispered and love arrived, tangled up in fear. Applause filled
These moments quietly fortified her resolve and readied her for what lay beyond the horizon. While others around her gradually turned towards safer, more predictable paths, Goldie remained anchored to her creative calling, guided by the belief that persistence would eventually meet opportunity. That faith proved well placed. It became the underlying structure of her transition into television and film, and ultimately the force that shaped her emergence as one of the most cherished figures in modern entertainment.
years, but behind the curtain, silence whispered and love arrived, tangled up.
It wasn't long before she began drawing attention in the vibrant go-go scene across New York and New Jersey. Soon after, the larger industry took notice, and the next chapter unfolded almost naturally. Her defining moment arrived in 1968 with Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In. The unmistakable brightness of her presence and her boundless momentum quickly made her one of television's most recognizable figures. That same year, she stepped onto the film landscape for the first time, appearing in a warm, offbeat family project that quietly signaled the beginning of something much bigger.
Silence whispered and love arrived, tangled up in fear. Applause filled the air.
Yet it was Cactus Flower in 1969 that quietly altered the gravity of her life and set her on a different plane altogether. That single performance brought her both an Academy Award and a Golden Globe, dissolving the narrow label that had confined her to being simply the lighthearted one. In an instant, Goldie demonstrated range, someone who could balance wit with emotional weight, ease with intention. The achievement did more than elevate her visibility. It secured her credibility within a field often hesitant to take radiant, joyful women seriously.
Applause filled the air like oxygen. Gold statues line.
From that turning point forward, her momentum only intensified, beginning with "There's a Girl in My Soup" and unfolding through a string of successes that secured her status as one of Hollywood's most reliable leading figures. Butterflies Are Free, The Sugarland Express, Shampoo, Foul Play, Seems Like Old Times, and Private Benjamin. That final role brought her another Academy Award nomination for Best Actress, underscoring the breadth of her abilities. With each project, Goldie did more than captivate audiences. She helped define a cinematic moment, her signature warmth and natural charm weaving themselves into the enduring memory of an entire generation.
Silence whispered and love arrived, tangled up in fear. Applause filled
Goldie transitioned from one project to the next with the steady assurance of someone fully aware of her creative strength. She delighted viewers in Overboard, surprised them through the playful shadows of Death Becomes Her, and became a defining presence of the 90 Seconds with the First Wives Club. Even later, in the Christmas Chronicles, at a moment when many contemporaries had eased away from public view, she offered the same gentle warmth and natural wit, creating the comforting sensation of rediscovering a familiar presence from an earlier chapter of life.
Silence whispered and love arrived, tangled up in fear. Applause
Yet beyond the polished images preserved on screen, Goldie's private world contained layers the audience seldom glimpsed. As the glare grew stronger, So did the quiet weight behind it fractured bonds, inner bruises, and a solitude familiar to many in the public eye but rarely spoken aloud. Even so, she continued forward not because her path was untouched, but because she learned how to let each fracture refract meaning. That quiet endurance is what shaped her into more than a celebrated figure, securing her place as one of the industry's most lasting presences.
Tangled up in fear. Applause filled the air like
Before recognition took hold, Goldie had already navigated a series of gentle yet intricate early attachments. She spent time with actor Mark Goddard and musician Spiro Uris, but the first bond that truly settled deep was with Gus Tracken, a dancer and actor known for his connection to West Side Story. Their paths crossed in the late 60s amid rehearsals and performance, and she later shared that from the very first glance, she felt an undeniable certainty about him. They married in Hawaii in May of 1969. Yet as Goldie's professional world began accelerating, the balance of their shared life quietly began to change.
Gold statues line the years, but behind the curtain, silence.
As Goldie's career accelerated, Gus faced increasing uncertainty in his own work, placing them on trajectories that no longer aligned. The separation did not arrive suddenly. It unfolded in silence, widening over time until it could no longer be bridged. They went their separate ways in 1973, though the legal chapter did not close until New Year's Eve of 1975, a point by which her life was already turning toward a new commitment. The process concluded in June of 1976, and only weeks later, she entered another marriage. Her second husband was Bill Hudson, a musician and actor from the Hudson brothers, and their story began with a chance meeting that felt lifted from a script-shared space, suspended between New York and Los Angeles, where an unexpected connection quietly took hold.
Silence whispered and love arrived, tangled up in fear.
Everything unfolded with startling speed and intensity, carrying the energy of a moment suspended between impulse and destiny. They were married on July 3, 1976, in the place where Goldie's story began, and soon welcomed two children, Oliver and Kate, who would later carve out their own paths in the public eye. Yet the union began to loosen almost as swiftly as it formed. By 1980, Bill initiated the separation, later reflecting that uncertainty had been present even at the ceremony itself. He would say he felt surrounded by extraordinary fortune until a quiet question reached him at the most unexpected moment, gently unsettling the certainty he thought he had found.
But behind the curtain, silence whispered and love arrived, tangled up.
That brief exchange stayed with him long after it was spoken, lingering in ways he could never fully set aside. Bill later suggested that while he was ready to commit to a stable family life, he felt Goldie was searching for something less confined, uneasy with the structure he imagined. After the separation, clarity never arrived, only greater complexity. He shared that distance grew where connection once lived, and the sense of being removed from his children's world became a quiet ache, heavier than any professional loss he had known.
Line the years, but behind the curtain, silence whispered and love arrived.
Gus Tracken later shared his own perspective, suggesting that recognition altered the dynamic between them, and that rising visibility gradually drew Goldie in a different direction. He described a world that suddenly expanded, filled with influential figures and unfamiliar rhythms, leaving him feeling disconnected from the person he once knew. Bill, too, spoke candidly. He argued that the public narrative projected warmth and simplicity, while his private experience felt far more complex and difficult. What unsettled him most was how their story was later framed. He firmly disputed her account, maintaining that their union followed clear boundaries, and that any suggestion of alternative arrangements had never been part of an understanding he recognized.
It circled back instead of moving on, two lives crossed again like a quiet.
What weighed on Bill most deeply was the sense of separation from his children. A wound, he said, lingered long after the public attention moved on. To the outside world, Goldie Hawn appeared as cinema's embodiment of light and ease. Yet beyond the frame existed layers of sorrow and emotional gravity rarely acknowledged. Two marriages had quietly come apart, and the echoes of those endings stayed with those involved for years. Still, Goldie continued forward. She focused on raising her children, re-establishing her inner ground, and, in time, finding the courage to let connection enter her life once more.
Walking away was still loud.
Goldie and Kurt Russell first crossed paths in 1966 while working on a film from the original Family Band series. Goldie was 21, Kurt just 16, and despite the difference in age, she later reflected with warmth, saying she found him charming. Nothing followed from that moment. They were young, focused on their own paths, and neither felt drawn toward relationships within the same profession. That short encounter settled into memory as a gentle footnote, one neither imagined would resurface 17 years later and quietly reshape everything. In 1983, Kurt arrived at his swing shift audition carrying a sense of unease, unaware that the past was about to reintroduce itself.
Not because time was kind, but because
And when Goldie entered the room, Kurt impulsively remarked, "You have an incredible presence." What could have felt uncomfortable instead dissolved into ease as she smiled and calmly accepted the moment. That brief exchange broke whatever tension lingered. Their first evening together unfolded with an almost scripted rhythm, dancing beneath glowing lights, then wandering toward a house Goldie had only just purchased. Without keys in hand, they entered together, laughing at the spontaneity of it all. As they explored the quiet, unfurnished space, the moment grew charged until flashing lights interrupted the scene. Plans shifted, the night redirected to a hotel, and Kurt would later reflect simply, "That was our first date," and it felt effortless.
that bends, but breaks never.
Once production on Swing Shift was underway, they finally shared uninterrupted time, and that closeness allowed their connection to settle into something steadier. That period marked a quiet shift. What they felt became anchored, intentional, and real. Goldie often acknowledged Kurt's outward appeal, but it was his authenticity that truly drew her in. No performance, no artifice, no carefully crafted allure. She later noted that she sensed immediately he wasn't driven by shallow impulses, and that distinction mattered. What touched her most, however, was not how he treated her, but the patience and care he showed toward her children, Oliver and Kate.
No one asked what she was chasing underneath the bloom.
She often brought her children onto the set, and each time she watched Kurt interact with them, a quiet certainty began to form within her. She later shared that his ease and attentiveness felt genuine, unforced, and deeply reassuring. In that realization, love shifted into something more lasting. It became a sense of belonging. By 1986, 3 years into their shared journey, Goldie and Kurt welcomed their son Wyatt, completing a blended family that included Oliver, Kate, and Kurt's son Boston. If this moment when connection evolved into a true sense of family resonates with you, leave the number 1 in the comments, or 0 if you view it differently. And remember to like and subscribe so you can continue exploring the most meaningful stories behind Hollywood's enduring bonds.
The marriages fade while the cameras stay bright. She held her children.
They chose not to formalize their bond, and neither felt any absence because of it. In 2021, Goldie shared a birthday message for Kurt that spoke volumes through restraint. She described him as spirited, thoughtful, affectionate, playful, exasperating, a devoted father, and endlessly humorous. Before concluding that she could not envision a life without him at any stage, Kurt answered just as simply, expressing that she was the person he loved and the one his heart remained with.
Finally read his strong.
Their connection was never confined to private life. It naturally extended into their work. One of their most cherished collaborations, Overboard, in 1987, captured that rare harmony with striking clarity. Goldie portrayed a privileged woman navigating memory loss, while Kurt's character drew her into a shared illusion of marriage. Audiences responded because the dynamic felt authentic rather than performed, and in many ways, it was. Decades later, when the film unexpectedly resurfaced on television in 2020, Goldie simply smiled and reflected, "We began on solid ground."
They chose each other every morning when walking away.
Their bond even found its way onto the live stage. In 1989, the two appeared side by side to present an Academy Award. Goldie addressed the audience by noting that they embodied the spirit of partnership, two people moving together, sharing life as companions and as a pair. Kurt, smiling, gently added a single clarification. They were not married. The room responded with instant laughter. Goldie playfully pressed the moment, hinting at a question unasked, and Kurt answered with humor, suggesting the conversation could wait. She echoed the sentiment with a knowing smile, lighthearted, affectionate, and unmistakably their own.
Was still allowed. Side by side.
In 1996, they stepped into the spotlight together once more at the premiere of The First Wives Club. Goldie led the celebrated film alongside Diane Keaton and Bette Midler, while Kurt remained close, sharing in her achievement with quiet pride, as though it belonged to them both. Their children were present as well, reflecting how fully their lives had intertwined beyond the screen. For Goldie and Kurt, public appearances were never just events. They became reflections of unity, moments where generations stood together, carrying their connection steadily through each evolving season of life.
Side by side through chaos and seasons, through fear knocking hard at
They shared laughter, creativity, and loyalty, standing side by side with the ease of a well-matched team. They never relied on a formal ceremony to define what they had. Their bond proved itself through time, becoming a partnership deeper than any public ritual. In 2003, Goldie spoke gently about a quiet hope, saying she felt no urgency, yet dreamed of one day becoming a grandmother because she sensed how meaningful it would be. That wish soon found its answer. On January 8, 2004, Kate Hudson and her then-husband Chris Robinson welcomed their son, Ryder Russell Robinson, bringing a new chapter of joy into Goldie's life.
found laughter in broken-in rooms, built a family.
Kate was just 24, yet her decision came from a place of clarity rather than haste. She once explained that she hoped to welcome children early so she could truly grasp what her own parents had felt in their youth, and so they could one day witness her child reach important milestones. With that moment, Goldie and Kurt stepped into a new role, becoming grandparents for the first time. And the milestones continued. In 2006, Goldie and Kurt appeared together on the red carpet in Italy for the premiere of Poseidon, standing side by side as admiration followed them, an image of connection that felt both enduring and quietly celebrated.
And love that learned how to bend, not bruise.
Kurt leaned in and shared a brief kiss with her on the red carpet, a simple gesture that instantly sparked excitement over the ease and closeness they shared. Then came 2016. Goldie celebrated her 71st birthday at the well-known Catch LA, arriving with a bright, unmistakable glow while Kurt followed, holding an oversized gift meant to mark the occasion. Yet the most meaningful surprise wasn't part of the celebration itself. It was something quietly reserved, waiting for her once the night was over.
Patience and love that learned how to bend, not bruise.
Their daughter Kate later shared an image of a fireplace Kurt had crafted in their new home, accompanied by a message that spoke softly but deeply. His hands shaped the stone, while something far greater was placed there for her mother and perhaps for himself as well. Beside it appeared 4 small heart symbols, standing quietly for the children. It was a modest detail, yet rich with meaning, reflecting the kind of care that had long defined their family. Because enduring connection is rarely announced, it is shown patiently through what people choose to build.
Love that learned how to bend, not bruise. They never needed
In 2017, Goldie stepped back into the spotlight at the premiere of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Kurt held a meaningful role, and she stood nearby in quiet support, sharing simply that her pride in him never wavered. She even mentioned she hadn't yet watched the film. Being present beside him mattered more than any screening. Yet the most powerful moment arrived away from flashing cameras. Weeks later, they stood together on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. In May of that year, both Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell were honored with their own stars, marking a deeply symbolic chapter in a journey built not only on success, but on shared time, loyalty, and mutual respect.
It finally felt like home.
Goldie later reflected that the ceremony felt like a true celebration of love, admitting she hadn't anticipated his words, nor the way he carried himself in that moment. What they built reached far beyond any single film. It was a lifetime of commitment that never required a formal symbol. When Kurt spoke, he turned toward her with quiet warmth and shared a sentiment that seemed to still the crowd, expressing that the life he cherished was inseparable from her presence. He closed by saying that no recognition along that famous street could rival what they shared, and that through every chapter, there was no one he would ever choose to stand beside more than Goldie Hawn.
All the fame, the scars, the years, it's choosing someone who sees you.
They shared a kiss beside their paired stars, creating a scene that felt like one of Hollywood's uncommon moments of unfiltered authenticity. Later that same month, Goldie spoke about the quiet ingredients behind their lasting bond, explaining that it rested on affection, appreciation, understanding, and the willingness to accept that closeness can sometimes test patience. For her, recognition was never the goal. It was the slow, intentional act of shaping a life alongside someone truly aligned with her spirit.
The years, it's choosing someone who sees you clearly.
In 2018, Goldie and Kurt returned to the screen together as Mr. and Mrs. Claus in The Christmas Chronicles. Audiences welcomed the reunion with enthusiasm, delighted to see them share the frame again after Overboard. Goldie's appearance in the first film was brief yet memorable, made even more meaningful by the presence of their son Oliver, turning the project into a genuine family moment. When The Christmas Chronicles 2 arrived in 2020, Goldie stepped fully into the role of Mrs. Claus, giving it a warmth and personality that felt entirely her own.
And choosing them again through every fear.
When asked why their paths didn't overlap on screen more often, Kurt responded with humor, noting that their creative worlds were naturally distinct. He explained that sharing a life, affection, and mutual respect never required constant collaboration, and that connection didn't need repetition to be real. They chose projects with intention, and on the rare occasions they worked side by side, the outcome carried a special kind of ease. In October of 2018, their circle expanded once more when Kate welcomed her daughter, Ronnie Rose. With that arrival, Goldie and Kurt found themselves surrounded by even more young voices, bringing their growing family to 7 grandchildren and adding fresh joy to an already full home.
To listen and love each other.
They regularly shared glimpses of Ryder, Bingham, Ronnie, Bodie, Wilder, Rio, and Buddy, and audiences were drawn to the warmth of a family spanning generations. In March of 2019, they traveled to Hawaii to mark Kurt's 68th birthday. Goldie posted a tender clip of the two of them strolling and laughing side by side, moving with the ease of people untouched by time. After decades together, the joy was still present, the choice still mutual, the connection still quietly alive. By the close of 2020, they began speaking more openly about the rhythm that had sustained their bond.
After all the fame, the scars, the years, it's choosing.
In a conversation with people, Goldie reflected that lasting connection comes from a shared desire to remain side by side, explaining that commitment was never about formal titles, but about choosing the person next to you each day. She noted that even the smallest moments, like the quiet awareness of their feet brushing in the dark, carried an intimacy she deeply valued. And in January of 2021, their circle of companionship expanded again, as Goldie and Kurt welcomed a new presence into the family, a puppy named Roy Hawn Russell.
It's choosing someone who sees you clearly.
Goldie later shared an image of herself wrapped around Kurt, a quiet snapshot that spoke volumes about the comfort and affection woven into their everyday life. Each exchange between them reflects a shared existence shaped by humor, cooperation, and authentic closeness. And no date seems to mirror their journey more clearly than Valentine's Day, the moment where their path first truly aligned. On February 14, 2022, Goldie posted a message honoring 39 years beside Kurt. Once again, admirers wondered why, after so much time, they had never chosen to formalize what they already held.
Not marriage, not tradition.
A few months later, Goldie spoke candidly in an interview with CNN, explaining her perspective in her own words. Kurt later echoed that sentiment in a Variety conversation in 2023, noting that people often asked when they would marry, while he and Goldie quietly questioned why it mattered at all. Even their children, he shared, never viewed marriage as a requirement for a lasting bond. Goldie addressed the deeper reason herself, asking how many separations truly spare children from pain. Then she revealed what mattered most to her, that she treasures waking up each morning and choosing to stay, not out of obligation, but out of desire. For her, the act of choosing one another every day carries far more meaning than any formal agreement ever could. In December of 2023, they were seen in Aspen sharing easy warmth, hands intertwined, close embraces, quiet affection drifting through the winter air. Yet not long after, Goldie disclosed a far more unsettling chapter. Their Los Angeles home had been violated twice. The first incident occurred while they were away for an evening, and she later described the shock of returning to a space that no longer felt intact. A secured place had been forced open, revealing a level of preparation that was deeply disturbing. Then, months later, another attempt followed, this time when she was alone, bringing a renewed sense of vulnerability that lingered long after the moment passed. She later recalled hearing a sudden sound from upstairs, only to understand the next morning that there had been another attempt to cross into her space. The experience shook her sense of ease so deeply that she and Kurt chose to add an extra layer of security, especially during the moments she was on her own. She shared that feeling unguarded was no longer an option. In time, they made a significant decision, stepping away from Malibu and settling in Palm Desert in search of greater calm and balance. Around the same period, Kate Hudson returned to the family's former home, openly acknowledging that she has always leaned on Goldie, describing their bond as wonderfully chaotic in the most loving way.
Not the stories people tell, just two hearts that love
Yet one question continued to follow them. What set Kurt apart from everyone else?
each other.
Goldie finally offered clarity in April of 2024 during a conversation on Conan O'Brien's podcast. She explained that it was never about appearance or surface appeal, but about shared values. His deep respect for family mirrored her own. Feeling prioritized, truly seen as someone's first choice, created an instant bond between them. Over time, that connection expanded into a larger circle, growing alongside Kate, Oliver, Wyatt, and a lively next generation that carried their sense of togetherness forward.
Each other well, they still love.
Goldie shared that connection matters just as deeply as affection itself. She joked that there has to be something meaningful that holds two people together, then gently noted that kindness often does more than grand gestures ever could. She acknowledged that commitment can be tested, particularly in an environment like Hollywood. Yet she and Kurt relied on honesty, accepting that human awareness doesn't disappear. The strength lies in how those moments are understood, communicated, and guided back toward respect, which is what ultimately preserves a lasting bond.
That they miss after all the fame, the scars, the
She described their bond as something flexible yet unbreakable, able to stretch with time without ever coming apart. By 2025, they had shared 41 years together, continuing to choose one another with quiet intention. On March 2nd of that year, they stepped onto the Oscars red carpet, carrying the ease of a couple untouched by time. Goldie shimmered in a flowing gold Dolce & Gabbana gown, while Kurt stood beside her in a timeless black tuxedo. Hand in hand, smiling without effort, they reflected the simple truth of two people still deeply connected.
It's choosing someone who sees you clearly and choosing them.
When asked to reflect on their journey, Kurt offered a response that was both plain and deeply genuine. He said he loved the way they first crossed paths, and that feeling had never faded. He still cherished being together. Over the years, they moved through loss, attention, uncertainty, constant change, and the complex rhythms of building a blended family. Yet their connection remained intact. Perhaps that is the quiet truth behind it all, not ceremony, not convention, but the conscious decision to keep choosing one another, again and again.
And choosing them again through every fear.
Which chapter of Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell's story stayed with you the longest? Was it a shared look beneath bright lights, the easy smiles exchanged without effort, or the steady resilience that carried them side by side for more than 40 years? Leave a comment with the number 1 if Goldie's journey resonates with you, or 0 if your perspective is different. And if their lasting partnership moved you, remember to like, subscribe, and share this video so the meaning behind their story can reach even more hearts.